For early access to more videos like this, plus exclusive content, community discussions, and more, become a patron at patreon.com/Bruce Poinsett. What's going on, world? It's Bruce. This is Oregon Kwanzaa Stories, Day 3, a 7-part storytelling mini-series based on the 7 principles of Kwanzaa. Why? Because Kwanzaa gets a bad rap. Even though it's an educational holiday, even though it's, you know, the not consumerist holiday that we probably need right now during a pandemic and economic downturn, it's still, it doesn't have all the bells and whistles of Christmas. So we gotta normalize that. We gotta start talking about why it's so important. So with that, each day of the holiday, I'll be sharing a little anecdote based around each principle. And if you want to get history of the holiday, I would refer you to video 1 on Umoja, which is unity. But today we're going to be talking about Ujima, which is collective work and responsibility. And before we get into some more of my Ujima story, let me just remind you, if you have stories about collective work and responsibility, please drop them in the comments and make sure to like, share, subscribe, and all the YouTube stuff. So, what is Ujima? Collective work and responsibility, or the commitment to active and informed togetherness. Basically, collaboration to uplift us all. So when I think of that, I think of student organizing, and specifically when I was in high school. So keep in mind, I graduated in 2007, and there was no Black student organizing happening in LO. Like, I had a column in the LO Review. I read Black history books, and I participated in a rites of passage program in Portland. But in terms of anything happening in the bubble, nah, we were, all Black students were pretty isolated. The closest thing you could say to an organization was maybe if, 3 or 4 of us were on any particular sports team during, a booming year. And usually those years were followed by, max exoduses afterwards. So that's another story, but keep that in mind. So again, I graduated in 2017, went to college, came back, and you fast forward to the summer of 2016. Teacher Ursula Wolf-Roca, and just want to shout her out, invited me to an event at the high school. Actually, first she showed me this article in Lake Views, which is the student newspaper, by a student named Cameron Leland, which was titled, "I Won't Apologize for My Blackness." And they're also having an event kind of corresponding with that for students to share, students and former students and community members to share their experiences being Black in Lake Oswego. So again, Ursula invited me. I wanted to, just reading Cameron's piece, one, as someone who had formerly written a column, just kind of reminded me of, back in that day. And I wanted to show my support. So I remember getting to the school, and I don't think I maybe visited once since I graduated. But when I went back that day, as soon as I stepped in the building, I just got all those feelings came back. All just the isolation, the memories, just you know, just get this like chill over you. You get tense, get a little angry just thinking about it. And I remember carrying that with me, just walking to the cafeteria, looking at the walls, looking at these pictures of, past class presidents and all these things. But I got to the cafeteria, got settled in, and, I was taking the presentation. There was an opportunity where, they invited people to come up and share their stories. So I figured, why not? And it's funny. I, I slipped into a moment where I specifically remember just I was at a football game and another student, excuse me, told a racist joke. And I just remember flipping out and choking him again at a football game in the stands in the band section because I also played in the band at that time. But I remember talking about that during this, event at the cafeteria and realizing, no, maybe I shouldn't share this story in a room with students and their parents. But, you know, I wanted to be honest and be real with them. And for what it's worth, as when I got done, it felt good. It felt good to get a little bit of that out. And some of that feeling I had when I was walking into the building had alleviated. So the event ends, I meet some of the students and, I'm just inspired because it's like they have a Black student union now. They've got these kids are actually kind of organized and doing things. They're putting on events. They're reaching out with other student groups. They're reaching out outside of LO. Part of me is almost jealous of like, God, where was this? But the other part of me is just, again, inspired because this is it's something I wish, we were doing when I was going to school. So a year later, when I got involved with Respond to Racism, LO, one of my early goals was just thinking about these students saying, okay, what can I do to help make sure this momentum keeps going forward? Because if you're familiar with LO, things change and no good Black deed goes unpublished or unpunished, I should say. So I kind of took that approach, but admittedly, that little kind of savior mindset was wiped away quickly because as I and many other people my age and older found out, Gen Z doesn't need any saviors. They don't need anyone rushing in with their capes. They could use our support, but they are on it. So, you know, we started working, trying to find ways to work with student groups, work with parents, and I gotta say, Black student organizing, especially in Lake Oswego schools, is really warmed my heart. You've got BSUs now at both of the high schools. They're not just doing events, not just hosting assemblies, not just meeting, but they're doing things to educate the community. They're out, connecting with other BSUs. They are, pressing admin for funding in a way that students really shouldn't have to, but they're stepping up to the plate. The BSU at Lake Oswego High School this year, they just for the holiday season, they partnered with Brown Girls Rise in Portland to make care packages. And I just want to, because they posted some pictures of it, I just want to share it with y'all. Like, check this out. Look at this. Look at these children. Like, think about the vision. That's what these kids are organizing. That's the work these kids are doing. They're not just, it's not even just taking care of themselves. You know, they're planting the seeds for the future. And these are high schoolers. Like this is, is beautiful. It's beautiful. And I just, you know, when I think of collective work and responsibility and, sometimes it feels like, just banging your head against a brick wall trying to, push this idea with adults and with people twice my age. Meanwhile, the ones that were half my age get it and are further along than a lot of us. It's, the burden shouldn't be on them, to be clear. It's a great model. It's, it is very effective for the future, but it is, it brings up really the point that now it's on us. Like the kids understand not just the work, they understand building infrastructure, they understand taking care of generations behind them and building up a bench to come up behind them. But now when we bring it back to us, so how are we going to support them? We can't just sit by and, pat them on the head and say, "Thank you so much for everything you're doing." How are we going to take some of this load off their shoulders? How are we going to provide the resources at our disposal, whether it be money, whether it be time, whether it be physical, or at least in this pandemic space, virtual space for what they're doing? How can we advocate for them so that they're not out here having to fight battles with, administration, fight battles with straight up white supremacists? Because yes, this work they're doing is great, but what they're doing should be a Kickstarter. It should be a kick in the ass, frankly, for us. So for today, I'm just going to leave you with that question. How, and more importantly, what are we going to do to better support these kids and keep growing the work they're doing? Because it is wonderful, but this is a collective fight. This is a collective, this is collective work. We have a responsibility to make sure we're taking care of them, not to put the burden on them to take care of all of us. So again, check you on the next video. Happy Kwanzaa, everyone.